I was so close to killing myself. I was so at the razor's edge. And then this is how the addict mind works, is all of a sudden I'm like, I need to make sure I keep doing this, or my kids are gonna lose their dads. I started surfing at 49 years old. I have been out on all of the biggest days over the last 2 years and have ridden waves 35 feet, 40 feet, 10, 12 meter faces, and made it. So truth is the king. When we honor it, it blesses us. And then we are able to rule over our kingdom, and then the kingdom within serves us. It's okay to want to be like your kids, but not to make your kids like you. Because time doesn't go that direction, it goes this direction. Yeah. Wisdom is what you do, how you act. What action do you take? If you have something that's really pressing on your mind, you're like, I can't figure this out, and you want to go into what I would call real prayer, a real fervent desire to get an answer to a question you can't solve, stop eating.
Welcome to another episode of the Aaron Darko Show. Today's guest is Mr. Sean Barnett. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
We met this last weekend, actually, on a mastermind that Gavin, our mutual friend, invited us to. And it was amazing, man. Like, that was the first time I've ever been under a waterfall.
Yeah.
Like a proper massive waterfall. Yeah. And then you were like, come on in, don't think about it. I'm like, okay. It was great memories.
Yeah.
And I just like to bring you on because, the vibes I get from you is like you've experienced a lot. You have a lot of experience, life experiences, and you have a lot of wisdom when it comes down to like we were talking about just before, self-actualization and how you've transformed yourself. Like you started surfing at age 49, which is crazy. Like your brand is the Sage Surfer. So it's just fascinating to me how we can live our life and then just have a sudden moment that just switches our mindset, and then we go and do the things that we've always wanted to do. Yeah, and become a different person. Yes. Right? And that's pretty much what you've done. You used to be overweight, right?
Oh,
so
chronically incarcerated, homeless, suicidal, drug addict, fat, whatever. Just really a whole different person. Dishonest, a thief, a liar, a manipulator, a schemer.
Right.
And like you say, the realization can happen like that. It takes a lifetime to develop and to become and to build our skills and become who we are becoming. But realization happens like a lightning bolt.
So where should we start? I'm curious. Like, what was the lowest point of your life? Like, let's start there and we can work.
Okay. The lowest point in my life was about 8 months before my last incarceration. I was addicted to Oxycontin and had...
What is Oxycontin?
Oxycontin is an opiate, probably about 10 times more powerful than heroin. Well, it depends. If you shoot up heroin, you can get just as high, for sure. But it's an extremely addictive painkiller. And actually, the exact one I was on was called Roxaset, which is a really small, super powerful form of Oxycontin. These little blue pills, the most amazing experience in the world, but it just creates a chase that you can never catch. You can never quite catch it again. And I recognized, I was just spending so much money chasing that I tried to go cold turkey. And during that stretch of not taking it, I got suicidal. And I was sitting in the middle of the night. I had decided that I'm a complete piece of shit and that the world would be better off without me, and got out my shotgun. I had a snub-nosed 12-gauge Mossberg shotgun with a pistol grip, and I had my thumb on it and was shaking and trying to figure out how to pull the trigger and picturing, just had images even of my kids and just crying, 2:30 in the morning. And all of a sudden I had this little moment where I was like, I think there's one more Roxaset in this little pocket of these like I remembered where one little pill was. And my idea was, if I go take that pill, it's going to give me the courage and I'll pull the trigger and get this over with. But I took the pill and 20 minutes later, I'm like, life's awesome. Like why was I about to do that, and partied and whatever, and woke up the next morning. And then I was like, oh shit, like that. I was so close to killing myself. I was so at the razor's edge. And then this is how the addict mind works, is all of a sudden I'm like, I need to make sure I keep doing this, or my kids are going to lose their dad. So now all of a sudden I'm honorable by being a drug addict. This is the crazy shit that the brain does when it's addicted to shit like that. So, there's another layer in that I was taking so much money, and one day I had taken like $300 out of our family bank account, went and bought pills with it, came home, and my wife had ordered pizza, and she's like, hey, can I get like $10 or something or $5 for a tip for the pizza guy? And I was like, I don't have any cash. And she's like, I was just on the online thing, and you just took $300 out for, where is it? And my little lying mind, came up with this story real quick. I'm like, I didn't want her to think I'm a drug addict. So I was like, I have a gambling problem, and I owe all this money for gambling, and I'm a gambling addict, and these bookies are after me, and if I don't pay this money, I mean, it's just complete lie.
Wow.
If I don't pay this money, then they're gonna come break my legs, and just full of shit. Yeah. And so I tried to keep that up for a while. And it was working. I was like, oh, all right. Like I'm able to pull money out to pay the bookies that don't exist, and could buy Oxycontin. And then one day she said, you're the only gambling addict I know that doesn't watch sports. She's like, what are you betting on? And I'm like, well, it was from before or something, just trying to get out of it. Yeah. So then it led to okay, I'm not going to do anything. Then led to the suicidal, to where I almost committed suicide. Then to now I need to figure this out. And I had a key to a bar that I used to work at, that I had quit working at because, again, I was trying to get out of that world. I rationalized, I'm just going to borrow a little bit of money from this bar. I started, sneaking in the middle of the night and just taking a couple $100 here, $300 here, and buying drugs with it. But now I'm robbing. Now I'm robbing my friend. And my friend owned the bar. I'm robbing my friend for money. And in my mind, I'm just borrowing it. I'm not even writing down how much I'm taking. I'm running a loose tally. And one of these days, I'm going to be rich and pay him back. I'll slip the money back in, and he'll come in one day and be like, wow, look at all this money that showed up. This is just sick in the head. So that was that led to him getting a private investigator to watch the bar. He figured out something was up. And one night when I let myself in, a private investigator was waiting outside, called the police. When I came out, German Shepherds, all kinds of cops, lights. I get slammed into the pavement. They, beat me up a little bit and held me in the car till my buddy showed up at the bar to look me right in the face, And I was like, my life's over. And actually, while I was in jail on like the second or third day of jail, this is before my sentencing or anything, I screamed out like to the universe, like, why? And something whispered right behind my right ear. I was in this little cell on a skinny little metal bed. Didn't have any padding or anything, just a stainless steel slab. And something whispered right behind my right ear and was just like, you lie. Like that, just so strong. And within just immediately, it was like every lie I had ever told was instantly like downloaded in my brain. And that was what I would call this moment of clarity that sent me on a search for what is truth. And my entire life's mission since that moment has been on that. And everything changed for me after that. I have no addiction tendencies. I've learned to master all of that. I've mastered psyche, emotions. It's just an amazing experience to seek truth and then to have a relationship with that and to be in pure allegiance to what is the truth to the best of my ability, you know. And it's been a tricky road and took me years. The first 2 years I was in constant therapy every week, and I hired one of the best therapists in Utah and basically said every week I want to keep working on this and dig deeper and deeper to find out just how deep I lie. How badly do I lie? And I lied. I don't know that there can be a bigger liar than I was. I would lie and say I was wearing a red shirt when I was wearing a black one. You know what I mean? But that stuff was the easy part, to unravel that. Then when I started looking at the exaggerations and the minimizations and the rationalizations and justifications, and then deeper how I would throw somebody off by leaving a word out or using a word that meant two things, or, you know, I'm very sophisticated with language, and how I could put an image of something in someone's mind while technically telling the truth. You know, that's when it gets really insidious. When we have this ability to mislead others to see a certain image. And as I unraveled all that, it ended up, there's just really these two core fears that underlie every decision where I would lie. And the first one was just that I'm not enough, that I don't measure up to some program, some imaginary jury in the back of my head that resembled my father and coaches and people that I respected and best friends. But of course, it's not them. You know, I'd created it. Or the second thing, which is a minor one, but still, is that I'm missing out, that somehow I deserve more, you know, in this world. And once I decided that I would face those two fears, it became really easy to see where I lie and then just make a decision. Don't fucking lie. You know, just tell the truth to the best of your ability, and recognize that I may play a trick on myself, but the second I do, make it right. If I said something and misled something, if I walk away and 15 minutes later I recognize that I may have misled them, make my way back. I can't tell you how many times I've come back to somebody and said, hey, I didn't say that exactly right. Here's exactly what I meant. And they'll look at me like I'm crazy. Be like, I don't care. And I'll be like, I didn't do it for you. I'm cleaning up my side of the fence for me. So thank you for allowing me to come back and straighten shit out, you know?
Whoa, there's just so much there. Like, where do I start with that? Okay, so first of all, how old were you when you were incarcerated?
The last one, it was 2012. I was 43 years old. So my first incarceration was 17, and my last one, I was 17 years old until 43. I was incarcerated 18 times over those years.
Whoa.
Yeah. Chronic. Homeless twice. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you say the lowest point was when you were 43.
Yeah.
Out of all the 18 times you were incarcerated, homeless.
Yeah.
Why was that the lowest point for you?
Well, because on some level, prior to that, I always knew I would just lie my way out of it. I always had the next excuse spinning. I always had the next rationalization or the story why it wasn't my fault, why I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was somebody else's fault. It's the system. It's always something out there. That point, I think I just ran out of energy. Do you know what I mean? I on some level, my soul knew I've got to take accountability. There's nowhere else to point. And I just was such a coward, you know? And then here's how bad of a coward I was. I was beating myself up that I was too big of a coward to pull the trigger. I was like, look at what a fucking pussy I am that I can't even pull the trigger, you know? And then, so that was the lowest of the low. That was this moment where I am like, was obviously not 100%, but like 99.99999% that I was the lowest piece of shit that there could possibly be. That my life had absolutely no value whatsoever. And really, from almost any perspective, I wasn't adding any value. I really was valueless to the world. All I did was take. All I did was want, need, take. Everything was about me. And it reached a hollowness. This is the best I can describe that place. A hollowness that echoed infinitely. And now, like, my life is this place full of love that echoes infinitely. It's the exact opposite. I'm so full of life and so full of love and so alive. And that's where truth and actuality can bring a person. So I was so detached that I was in complete hollowness. And it was just beyond, I wouldn't even say painful. Complete despair, complete hopelessness, complete emptiness, just void of anything. It was the worst.
Yeah. And wow. And so when you were in that cell and you had that voice whisper, what do you think that was? Like, where do you think that came from? Was that just an accumulation of all those years where you were just lying and, you know, exhausting your energy on this stuff?
Yeah, I frame things, right? So yeah. I've come to a place where I don't believe anything. And so I'll recognize that I frame something. The only thing I even trust in this world anymore is results. So at this point, this is real. This moment's real. We're having this conversation. People can play semantics and games and play pretend and all that, but what's happening is happening. Yep. It's self-evident. It doesn't take any belief. So that's all that I pay attention to, yep. Right? So when that voice, how I frame things like this, mm-hmm. is that there's gatekeepers, and they're of my own making. The demons that attack my mind to this day are of my own making. So I don't presume to say it was a spirit or an ancestor or whatever, but I do also, it's pretty clear that DNA, whatever that is a transmitter and a receiver. We see things in actuality, and we see it with technology where we're transmitting and receiving, that there's always this source of transmitting and receiving. We look at our relationship with a plant, and it's transmitting oxygen and receiving carbon dioxide. There's a transmission and a reception going on in everything. Right now, there's an interaction going on between the audience and us. No matter when we record this, it will be received at a specific point in time all over the planet. Just like if we send out an email, it gets opened, it gets received at a different perceived time, but the reception and the transmission takes place all at once. That voice was some sort of transmission, and I was finally like in a place to receive it. And so is that the whisper of all of my ancestors that came before me that's encoded in my DNA? Is it, the whisper from what we might call a guardian angel or a gatekeeper? These riddles, like the riddle of the Sphinx, we've heard of forever, which, when you get to the answer of the riddle of the Sphinx was about who am I? And then the Sphinx throws itself into the river or is absorbed back into consciousness once we no longer need a gatekeeper. That's the way I look at it. So there had been something keeping me from knowing that for a very specific reason. And I believe that this is where it's a belief. And I guess it's not a belief. I know that it's true because it happened. Yep. So I don't believe it. I know that that's what had to happen. I know that life unfolds exactly as it will. And so I had to be kept from that gnosis, from that realization, and that search for the truth. There was a gatekeeper keeping me from the quest for truth until that exact moment. And I don't have to believe it. It's self-evident. Yeah. But that's when it happened. And so I trust that. I trust that that's, and so where exactly and why? I don't go off very far in that. I'm not very woo-woo, even though I've had thousands of experiences that are supernatural or unexplainable or, that doesn't make any sense. Where the hell did that come from? There's, Yeah. But I know it happened. Yeah. And then now I can see the result. It's insane to me that in 10 years, I just had my 10-year anniversary, was June 13th, 2022. It was June 13th, 2012. And so it was just, and it was like June 18th or something else. And I was like, that was 10 years ago. It's been 10 years since I've been committed to telling the truth. And I've lied a million times along the way. Don't get me wrong. I haven't been perfect, but I've been on the quest. I've been getting better and better and better and practicing and practicing and practicing, you know.
This is something that we spoke about when we were talking on the weekend about telling the truth. And I was telling you that I had a conversation recently with one of my friends, and we were asking each other, what's your default? Is it to tell the truth or to lie? And I had no idea that this thread of conversation would go this deep with you, like how important it is for yourself to tell the truth based on your life experiences. And so how important is it? Like, why is telling the truth? I know you were lying like pretty much your whole life until 43 years old.
Yeah.
But yeah, like speak to someone who's watching who's like, all right, what do you think about people who are in the world right now and they're going through their life telling white lies here and there?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, you know, I touched on earlier, I'm an occultist, right? And people have talked about this philosopher's stone, or you've heard of the search for the Holy Grail, or this ability to become an alchemist, to turn lead into gold, to turn shit into pure beauty, right? What I can say to someone who's out there that is questioning whether there's value in the truth, as I get better at it, as I get better at having a relationship with actuality, with life exactly as it happens, without wishing or wanting or even trying to bend it or warp it, when I honor life exactly as it is, it supports me in a way that is pure magic. The last 2 years, I've been living in what I would say is the best villa in Bali. Bali's one of the most sought after destinations in the entire world, and I live on the beach in a 6-bedroom mansion, you know, wake up every day with an infinity pool going to the beach that, you know, I started surfing at 49 years old. I have been out on all of the biggest days over the last 2 years and have ridden waves 35 feet, 40 feet, you know, 10, 12 meter faces, you know, and made it, you know. My relationship with my children is so fulfilling. I meet people like magic. The experience we shared in the waterfall, you and I, was deep on so many levels of brotherhood, of manhood, of what it's like to have unconditional love, to demonstrate courage. Having a relationship with truth presents these opportunities to display courage. And from my experience, whatever we want to call reality, reality rewards courage above anything. That when you feel you know it's the right thing to do, and we all know on some level it's the right thing to tell the truth. We know it. It is in an alignment with a vibrational field that you know. You can get shit by lying, for sure. But we all know on some level, deep within us. And that's honoring. And when we honor, right? Picture this, as sovereign individuals, right? We reflect the greater story, the meta universe. When a king is just, the servants, the subjects, honor the king. And the king, the just king, blesses the subjects. This is the relationship of a well-run kingdom. When the king is a tyrant or greedy or whatever, there's a revolution, a revolt, and everything's in discord. So truth is the king. When we honor it, it blesses us. And then we are able to rule over our kingdom, and then the kingdom within serves us. It's self-evident that this is how it operates in a well-run structure. So we have no business ruling over ourselves unless we rule justly. And the only way to rule justly is in truth, is to tell the truth. It is king, above all. And so one thing that truth leads to is integrity. And when we know the truth, when we really understand what the truth is, then we can be in allegiance to that, and that is integrity. And we can look, the integrity of a structure means that it stands under all the buffering, all the storms. And this is the true philosopher's stone. The philosopher's stone is the ability to hold ourselves in contentment and dignity through all the bullshit and suffering that life throws at us. And when we have that, when we're able to do that, when everything around us seems like it's in discord and there's no hope and all that, to be able to be both content and dignified under any storm is the true philosopher's stone. That is true alchemy. Because then it doesn't matter what you're doing. Life's awesome. Life's blessing. Life leads to bliss and rapture and all of the greatest experiences we can have. And so that's why to be in allegiance to truth is because the reward is beyond anything you can fathom. Where all of a sudden, doesn't matter where you look, life is beautiful. Every moment becomes this opportunity to make love, to fuck, like we talked about, up there, to fuck life with all the passion and juice and it's the ultimate. To be doing that. And then the child that we make with life is pure beauty. And that feeling is just leads to this oneness. And then we add real value. And real value is always rewarded. We see it in everything. It's all self-evident.
So basically what you're saying is since you started telling the truth 10 years ago, your life has become better than you even imagined.
I could never in my wildest dreams scripted how incredibly beautiful, exciting, adventurous, full of love and passion and awesome experiences. I in my wildest dreams, I couldn't have crafted this story.
Wow.
Yeah. What I pictured as my best possible outcome of life was nothing compared to this. And I know tons of people who even have maybe more material wealth, but they're miserable. I know their stories. They come to me and, Sean, how do I deal with this? I've got the Lamborghinis and the mansion and the, all this stuff. And, I've certainly been in Lamborghinis and on yachts and had all that without all the headaches, right? Of that. Mm-hmm. Certainly, I am not in any way, I'm not one of those woo-woo people who's like, oh, money, you don't need it. No, I'm all about creating wealth, and I do my best. But during that journey, is life enriched? Is it full? Because then if that can't be taken away from you, you can go for anything you want, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. The ride itself is awesome. When the moment is always awesome, regardless of the circumstances, when I can offer love with no terms and conditions, no expectations, I don't need anything from you. I'm not trying to get anything from you. I offer it freely. All of a sudden, call it karma or whatever, the universe somehow responds by going, oh, you give freely? I give freely. Because it's a fucking mirror somehow. It really is. This is above, so below. Oh, is that what we're doing here? We're giving freely? Oh, sweet. Here you go. And you can't turn it off. It becomes this crazy thing where in my old monkey mind will come in and be like, so actually being charitable and giving freely is the most selfish thing I can do because I get the most reward. But it's how it goes.
That is how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah.
The law of the universe, right?
It's just a law.
Yeah.
You can't escape it. Yeah, you can try and fuck with it and think you're doing it, but all those lies, all that is you're fucking yourself over, instead of just going, oh, I'm going to have a real relationship. I want to know law. I'm not afraid of law. It's one of the most courageous things a man or a woman, you know, in this man space, to have pure courage to go, I want to know. I want to know just how full of shit I am. I want to know just how true I can be. I want to know just how integral I can be with the source of life itself. Integral, same root, integer. An integer is a whole number. Everything else is a fraction, right? Or a fractal. An integer is being integral. And when we know we are integral with life, that life cannot be full without us and we can't be full without life, that it's one whole and we become one, you know, that we hear all the time of the guru reaching oneness and enlightenment, which certainly I've been there, you know, but that even gets boring. I don't want to spend my life in a cave going, oh, you know, I'm one. It's great when I experience it. But again, it's self-evident that just even as life itself, it's always blowing itself up to become something again, to experience all of it. But doing this in integrity with something which I call the source, with true will. Being in integrity with true will. At some level, there's a knowing that has been embedded in each one of our souls of who we are to become. And it's been there no matter what. It's been there since as little of a kid as we could be. We knew we wanted to become something great. And when we're in allegiance to that, in integrity with that, then that's what we become. But it's not programming. It doesn't come from GQ magazine or, you know, some whatever story of that you read about of what success is. It's a knowing that's embedded in each one of us. James Hillman called it the daemon, this natural knowing of who you were always meant to become. When we get in allegiance with that, with the becoming, then we become a verb. When we're seeking something, going after something, oh, I want this. When I get this, I'll be happy. Everything's dead. Nouns are dead. People, places, things. It's dead. It can only be animated. In other words, a program must pull the strings on it like a wooden puppet. So when we're seeking material shit, when we're seeking this amount of money or this, you know, yacht, this car, this house, this girlfriend, this, you know, my girlfriend needs to be this hot, da-da-da. When it's people, place, and things, we are dead. And let the dead bury the dead. When we are in becoming, now we're a verb, and now we're alive. And life is so fucking beautiful. It's so fulfilling. It's so full of this juice that is the source of all creation. When we get with that, then we're becoming and we're alive. And it's just like, running around with their heads on fire. It's the best. It's the best.
So it's funny because as you're saying this, I'm thinking people watching this are like, well, is he taking something?
Yeah. Yeah. No.
You know how people are, right?
Yeah, I know exactly, right? Did he take mushrooms today? You know, certainly I've taken a lot over the years, but no, I'm not on any DMT. You know. Yeah, this is how I am. You know. Yeah. You spent, you know, a couple days in the woods with me, and you know it. When Gavin invites me to stuff, he's like, this guy doesn't turn off, you know?
What is it, do you think, that gives you that zest for life? Because I've met a lot of people in my life, and I haven't met many people like you that are just, for lack of a better description, is like you're just high on life, right? Yeah. And so what is that? Like, how are you so high on life?
Well, I'm with it. I mean, that's the thing. I'm with it. This is, if you know, on my podcast, I'm always doing my best to guide people to the terrain. And what I see in society, the reason I can see it so easily in society is because I did it when I was just a liar all the time and always trying to get and whatever. I lost my train of thought for a second, but
you said you're with it. You're with it.
Yeah, when we're with it, like. I wonder why. That was crazy. All of a sudden, I just went like, I'm going to get back with it.
You're talking about your podcast. And
yeah, it's to drive people. The message is to drive people back to the terrain. The terrain is the becoming. The terrain is the moment. This beautiful relationship between who is interacting with the moment and the moment, right? That's the terrain. People fall in love with the guide. So they'll find their favorite guru, or they'll take some ayahuasca, or they'll take some mushrooms, and that's all guides. They'll get way into meditation. All that stuff are guides. Meditation, gurus, Tony Robbins, all awesome guides, great guides. To what? To the terrain. Where's the terrain? This moment. So each guide can take us to different levels of an experience of the terrain, but don't fall in love with the guide. That's, I think, why I'm so full of life all the time. I don't need anything anymore. I took it. I've done smoked the toad, done ayahuasca 4 times. I've done San Pedro ceremonies and smoked all the weed in the world and taken all the acid and the mushrooms and the, peyote and blah, 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 right? And sought and worked with shamans and Native Americans and, all this stuff. Shamans from Africa, studied divination, tarot, whatever, everything, right? Seeking. And one day I was like, what am I seeking? The terrain. And so the guides are great. But when someone takes you on a hike, maybe you might need them a second time for that same hike, but hopefully by 2 or 3 times, you can get yourself there without the guide anymore, right? The first time you moved here to Bali, you needed your GPS to find yourself anywhere. Now you don't, right? You understand the terrain. You're having a relationship with the terrain. It's the same thing as above, so below. So once we're in relationship with the terrain, which is always the moment, is the easier way to call that, the right now, as it is. Because that's unconditional love. That's what all the scriptures in the world were always talking about when they're talking about unconditional love. No conditions, no terms, no conditions. Agape is another word for that. A love in complete honor to the source of life itself, which we don't second guess it. It's like, it is. What is. That's unconditional love. And unconditional love impregnates what is receiving it. This whatever receptive field of infinite potential that we know exists because we see it.
Yeah.
The results of what people do, the result in this land of cause and effect, right? When we impregnate the field with unconditional love is truly unconditional acceptance. When when you disappoint your parents, it's because they put a term and condition on their love. When you're all of a sudden like, I don't have a good relationship with my dad or a good relationship with my mom, because they put a term and condition. Once they're like, no, I just want to see what you do. I just want to watch you. I just love you. You're fucking beautiful no matter what you do. That kind of relationship, the father and the son, become so beautifully entwined. We talked about this right before we came on here about it's okay to want to be like your kids, but not to make your kids like you, because time doesn't go that direction. It goes this direction.
Yeah,
right?
It's so powerful.
Yeah, and so instead of trying to force our bullshit onto our kids, it's like, no, I just want to watch you. In fact, if anything, I'll follow you. I'll get behind you and see what you're doing. We were talking about how listening to our kids creates these incredible investment opportunities and all kinds of stuff because the kids are with it way before the parents in what's going on in technology and where life is moving and all of this stuff. But again, that's unconditional love. It's easy to conceptualize it, but to actually do it, then you're making love with the great cosmos, and the child will be, and all life has a father, a mother, and then the union creates a child. We see it, even plants, a pistil and a whatever the other, I can't remember from biology, but I know there's,
Yeah, so how has this changed your relationship with your kids?
With my kid?
Yeah, in the last 10 years, how is this telling the truth, loving life and...
Yeah, and I with all, my first son is 24 years old now, and...
And you are how old, just so everyone knows?
I'm 53 now, and I have 3 sons, and they're all 8 years apart. And the first one, man, he got the dad that just did the best with what I had learned, but copied my dad, who copied his dad. It was just like, you need to do this, and you need to get good grades, and you need to. Always instructing. And by the time he was 13 or 14, our relationship had become shit. I mean, I spent so much time with him, our relationship lasted through a really bad time. But it got to a point, I think when he was 15, I sent him to a wilderness, like a wilderness camp, like basically like boys camp, you know, for problem children. And he is no problem child. He just didn't fit in the bullshit that had been programmed into my mind about what it takes to be a man. And the whole thing was all about, I don't want you to end up like I did. You know, I don't want you to end up imprisoned and da-da-da, so I'm going to tell you. I have no fucking business telling him shit. You know what I mean? I have no business, especially if I was incarcerated and all this stuff. I'm the last person you should be listening to on what the fuck to do.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So my middle, who's 16 now, I started to wake up to this when he was probably about 8. So earlier in life, I was instructing him, but at about 8, I quit. His relationship and my relationship is so beautiful now. I mean, I can't believe that I have a 16-year-old who will be like, hey, I'm going out with my friends, and they all want you to come. You know, will you come with us? You know, when I was a teenager, my parents were the last person I wanted to see.
Yeah,
and my older son, when he was 14 or 15, he was like, fuck you, Dad, get away. You know, he's sneaking out of the house and hiding. My kid and all his friends are like, we can't wait. Can we come over to your house? Can we come with you? Will you come out with us? And I support his friends in their music and all this stuff. And then my 8-year-old, he's had his whole life where I haven't instructed him to do shit. And it was tough because anyone who's listening to this notices I curse all the time, and my ex-wife would curse and stuff. And so I remember being at the gym, and I dropped him off in the little daycare, and it was in Utah. And the woman who was running the daycare was super Mormon, and they're like, don't swear, don't drink, don't, you know, really uptight. And I came to pick him up, and she's like, Mr. Barnett, we're not going to be able to have your kid come here anymore. And I'm like, why? What? Did he hurt somebody? She's like, no, but he's calling everybody little bitches and saying motherfucker and all this. And I'm like, all right. But again, I didn't try to change it. I was like, all right, I'll find a different gym. You know what I mean? All right, but I'm not going to change him. You know, he doesn't need to fit into any box.
Wow. So you're not trying to, you're not even reprimanding your children.
He can say motherfucker all he wants. I do. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
I say it whenever I want.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So you don't reprimand your kids now?
No. I mean, I will stop them from hurting somebody.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
And I will stop them from doing something that will hurt themselves. You know, certainly that's my job, is to hold some sort of boundaries, you know, but the boundaries are you going to hurt yourself or others? That's it. Other than that, do as you will. But, you know, don't hurt anybody. You don't get to infringe on anybody else's right for peace and, you know, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. You know, so he doesn't get to infringe on that. You know, I'm not going to let him spit on somebody or anything like that.
Yeah. Like they're like, you're allowing them to express themselves.
If he says fuck, and he does, you know, somewhere along the line, when people would ask him to pose for the camera, he'd get frustrated. He never wanted to. And somewhere he learned that it's funny to give a double bird. And so now it's like, hey, can you smile for the camera? He'll smile big and just be like, and I love it. I put pictures of him up all the time doing it. I think it's hilarious. You know, my youngest son is, I can just see it. He's destined for some sort of rebellion. And that doesn't surprise me based on the current climate of the world, that there might be extreme value in some people that buck the system right now. Some people that have no problem going, fuck you. You know, we talked about that, where the new age, that kind of new agey movement of spirituality, where it's all love and light, that's a system of enslavement. That is pure programming that is meant to enslave the human race. Yes, love, light, compassion, forgiveness on one hand, but on the other hand, a fucking sword of severity that will sever a head off, that will just, a ruthless killer, a ruthless assassin. It must be this way. We see it in nature. You know, you look at the elk herd, right? There's a bunch of wolves nipping at the heels, waiting for the weak ones to come back. That's what keeps it healthy. Those wolves are vicious. And they serve an incredible purpose. And if it's in one thing, it's in everything. It's a law. We take no shit and harm no one. Cause no harm, but take no shit. And it has to be that. That's natural law. And the result of that is pure beauty. That's what we experience in our heart, is beauty. It's not love. Love is an action. Love is a doing. Love is an honoring of the other with no terms and conditions. It's a giving, a receiving. It's forgiveness, love, compassion, all that good shit. But on the other side, has to be no. There can be a divine yes, but there also must be a divine no. No fucking way. I will guard the gates of my mind. I will guard the gates of my house. I will guard against anything that seeks to take away freedom, that takes away the right for each sovereign individual to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. But that no is essential, and it must be ruthless, extreme, severe is the real word, to sever the fucking head off of anything that seeks to take away. As men, we must be vicious killers if necessary, and unlimited lovers. This both, and integrate that,
As you say that, I'm thinking about one of my favorite films. It's called The Next 3 Days with Russell Crowe. I'm not sure if you've seen it. But the basic premise of the storyline is that it's like he's an average guy, he's got wife and kids, and then his wife gets wrongly convicted for a crime and she goes to prison. And now he's faced with a decision.
I did see it.
He's like, what do I do? He's like just a normal guy,
Yeah.
And then it just shows the journey of like, in each guy, in each man, there is that part of him where he's like to sever, and he's just like, fuck it, no more. I'm protecting what's mine. I'm protecting my freedom. And so he goes and breaks his wife out of prison, right?
Yeah.
And he just morphed into this other character,
It's in us all.
It's in us.
We need to know that assassin. We need to know that Incredible Hulk. We need to know that Thor, that those archetypes of the superhero. And they're vicious, and we know that. Ruthless. And we have been programmed and emasculated over and over. This love and light fucking woo-woo bullshit. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for the love and light. You can feel it.
Yeah.
Anyone who comes in, and I'm as love and light until.
Do you know what's funny about that is because people are watching this and they're like, maybe they thought that of you until you started talking about this stuff. They're like, holy shit.
Yeah. We must have access to both, and both must be at the ready. If we deny either, if we deny our soft or we deny our ruthless, it will act out. And we can see that in real life. If you ignore a child and just go, no, you're not supposed to be that, and you're not this, go hide in the corner, be seen, not heard, you see, that kid becomes a criminal, he acts up in class, he will do anything to seek attention. And it's the same thing with all the aspects of who we are, these archetypes within ourselves. If we don't know them and honor them and love them and understand their value and their worth, then they'll act out and they'll come out sideways. All of a sudden, we'll be violent for no reason. Yeah. All of a sudden, our wife or something says the wrong thing, and we're like, "Fuck yeah!" And somebody cuts you off in traffic, and you're ready to throw down in the street, and you're like, "Holy shit, I got hijacked." It's like it feels like that. When our emotions can take control of us, it's like we get hijacked. And it's like I was temporarily insane. I look back at who I was for all those years. It doesn't even feel like it was me. I feel like I was hijacked by some fucking demons or some shit. That's what it feels like.
Right.
Whereas once we honor that all of that is us and integrate it, and we know it's standing at the ready, then we get to be that sovereign king that's in control and can unleash the wolves when it's time. But keep them at bay, at the ready, fed, taken care of, clean, stroked, building loyalty, at the ready, but treated so well, and vice versa.
I think when you're talking about like children and stuff, like I think a lot of parents are not aware of the cost of how they're treating their kids. Like be seen, not heard, like be quiet.
Yeah.
Or like say hi to your auntie. Like I don't like my auntie. Yeah. Say hi to her. Yeah. Like shit like that,
Yeah.
Like they're not aware of the cost, the implications of that in the child.
Yeah. you look at the state of the world right now,
Yeah.
and it's actual. It's happened. So if we're going to get something different, we better change what the fuck we're doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
We better destroy every belief that we've ever had. And we're at a tipping point. We can see it. I mean, if you would have told any of us 4 years ago that some bullshit could have been perpetrated where people willingly would have sat in their house and say, I can't leave the house unless I put a piece of cloth that has holes 1 billion times bigger than a virus, like that if logically you're like, oh, I'm going to catch mosquitoes in a chain with a chain link fence, you know, and that people would do that people could be that fucking stupid. You'd be like, no way. Yeah, we saw it. And it's still happening.
Yeah.
It's still happening. So something has to change. And we talked up at the fire, in the mountains about this. We are the current state of all the lives that came before us. We are the manifestation of all the hopes and dreams of every ancestor that came before us. And so we're also responsible for all those that come after us. And DNA isn't something where like once they were born, they're on their own. DNA is a transmitter and a receiver. We are connected through life and to every life, not just our own direct descendants. But it's, I think, beneficial to frame it when we look at our own direct descendants, because it's like, oh, I have extra care for my sons, you know? We have such a high responsibility when we go, oh my God, this will be transmitted to all generations. Then we find such a deep reverence for the responsibility to be true and to be the greatest version of ourselves. And in there, it's pure accountability. You know, we talked about that Gary Vee thing. Gary Vee talked about, don't point at any problems with fingers, always thumbs. Point at every problem, thumbs, not fingers. That's what we've got to be doing right now. There's problems out there. We can see it. But everybody, oh, it's the Democrats, it's Trump, it's fucking the Pfizer, it's, you know, it's the Illuminati,
right.
You know, all this bullshit, right? No, it's right here. The only reason that anyone can't influence the global conversation is because they're fucking irrelevant. And so build relevance, become more relevant. How do I become more relevant? By gaining rapport with people. How do I gain rapport with people? By showing that I'm in integrity, by walking my walk and doing what I say I'm going to fucking do, and honor the word. Then I start to have influence with myself. That's first. If I can't get influence over myself, if I can't master myself, I have no business influencing my children. Once I'm in integrity, now I might influence my children. Maybe. They can't hear a goddamn word I say, but they can certainly hear every action that I take. They can hear everything I do loud and clear. And so then I might have some influence. And if that happens, then people might go, oh, look at that family. And I might have influence with my neighbors. Or I might have influence with the men's group. I might gain rapport. And we can see this. That's the way. That's the way out of this shit. But it ain't getting on Instagram and being like, fuck whoever.
Yeah.
You know, the perpetrator du jour. You know?
What you just said there about the actions is so true. I met a guy in Japan once. He's about 60 years old, and he was sharing a story with me about his kid. And he was like, "Dude, I'm trying to get my kid to be an entrepreneur." And he was just in a normal job, right? And he's like, "Dude, I've been trying to get my kid to be an entrepreneur for like the last 5 years, and he's not doing it." And I was just like, well, because you're not doing it.
Right, right, yeah.
He's like, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's not listening to me. I'm like, because you're not fucking the example. Like,
yeah, so funny. And how do you know he doesn't want to be a rock star?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I've had more influence from rock stars than you know.
Yeah. It's like parents try to put you in a box. Like there's a really good book by Andre Agassi, his biography, and basically the synopsis of it is his dad wanted him to be a tennis player, and then once he won all the titles, he was like, "Fuck, I don't even like tennis."
Right.
Like he got really good at something he didn't even like.
Yeah.
Because of his dad pushing him.
Yeah.
And
I can see that. That's why he was rebel.
Yeah.
Right. He was the rebel.
Yeah.
Canon did a good job of picking up on that and marketing their camera, the Rebel camera. He's like synonymous with that.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
So you mentioned about seeking how you went on all of these plant ceremonies and all this stuff, and you've experienced so much in the seeking realm. So how does someone self-actualize without doing all that stuff? Is there a way, or do they have to go on that journey?
Well, I don't know that there's any way without seeking, right? So in the Gnostic Gospels, or the Gospel of Thomas, it says, seek and do not stop seeking until you find. And when you find, you will be disturbed, and then the universe will be open unto you. And that mirrors my exact path. So if I could offer a hack, if I could shorten the time frame so you don't have to seek, figure out what the fuck you're seeking. You know, what is it? What are you seeking? And I encourage you to seek the best version of yourself. That's what to be seeking. And once you find it, you'll be disturbed. It will disturb you beyond anything, especially in how far you have to go and all of these things. It will require incredible courage to take that journey and say, I commit, I decide, I cut out all other options. I'm burning the ships. I'm all in on becoming this greatest version of myself and being in allegiance. And now there's no more seeking. You don't need any more gurus. You don't need any more plant medicine. Once you understand where the fuck you're going and what the terrain is, you can guide yourself. You don't need to seek anymore. Now you become, which is an action. Wisdom has nothing to do with what you know and what you understand. What you know and what you understand has absolutely no value at all in this world. Yet, it's a prerequisite to wisdom. Wisdom is what you do, how you act. What action do you take? And so this seeking of the greatest version of myself is truly the greatest acting class, where you go, oh, I learned how to act as king. I learned to act as a father in integrity. It's an act. It's an action. And actions are verbs, and life is a verb. And we get with it. Get with the becoming. That's where it goes. You know, and that's what we intend to get with. So I fell into traps, and I've seen many people fall into traps of continually seeking. It becomes an addiction of its own. If I read one more book, I need to learn this, I need to do that. Now, learn something, and if it rings true, we talked about ring true, that term was from the gypsies, because people would try and give them fake gold. And gold has a certain ring to it, so when it rings true, it rings in integrity. When something rings true, get to work on it. Do it and do it and do it until you master it before you move on to the, oh, well, but now I have the knowledge. Now I understand. Well, what fucking good is that? Nothing. It has no value. What do you do? What are your results? What are you able to create? What are you competent in? That has value. That's what gets paid, and that's how we make shit. That's how we create. And life is about creation. It's self-evident. Life seeks to create. There's no belief necessary on that.
True.
It's right in front of our face.
And that's just like our energy is we love to create. Like,
yeah.
We want to create. Like
of course.
We're creating right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we are creatives, and we do it in our music, in our dance, in our words, and what we make, what we create. We take the action. We were talking up there at Moonduke about, I did 157 episodes of this thing called Musings from the Lineup, which was just talking into my camera, doing Facebook Lives, before a company out of Australia was like, we want to pick you up for your podcast. And now I've done 52 episodes. I've done a year's worth of podcasts, right? Yeah. And I'm not great. It's self-evident. I'm nowhere near Joe Rogan or whatever. It's self-evident. Otherwise, the whole world would know me, right? But it doesn't keep me from practicing. And whatever the result of this conversation is going to be 1,000,000 times better than it would have had I not practiced 200 times somewhere else, and then plus all the places I've been invited to speak. I speak at men's groups and get invited into all kinds of Zoom calls and things. And each time I get a little better at it, and I gain a little more relevance, and then maybe I'll have a little more influence. And maybe that might add to solving these problems that we see in the world and getting people to really respect and understand natural law and revere freedom over life. That freedom is of higher value than life itself. Give me liberty or give me death. That at that level of consciousness, we really create, and I know so many people who are like, no. Life is more important. I need to preserve my life over freedom. Take away my freedom as long as I still have life. Well, you're fucked up, man. You know what I mean? That person is fucked up. And we need men that stand up, and women, but as men, we must stand up and say, no, you got your fucking priorities backwards. Freedom. Life.
It's interesting as you say that. I'm thinking about going back to, how you raise your children to not impose your beliefs on them. Mm-hmm. But then you'd want to do that. So what's the difference between that and not imposing your beliefs on children and imposing your beliefs on people who are just kind of lost, I guess, or just,
So I'm not telling anyone what to do.
Right.
I'm not telling anyone that they can't hide in their house and wear wear 16 masks and da-da-da-da. I'm not telling anybody that. I'm saying there will be men that resonate with this, and I know we need those men, and that is pure gnosis. I see it.
Right.
It's always been that way. It's always been that way. We need strong men in integrity to protect the weak and protect the foolish and protect the fools. It's just the way of the world. The wolves protect the herd by killing the fucking weak. You know what I mean? And so I'm just a man who gets it. And there'll be plenty of people who are like, no, you're a man who's an idiot. You're a man who doesn't know shit.
I'm waiting for the comments.
And that's just fine. Go ahead. Have your way. I won't impose on you. I will do no harm and take no shit. That's the way of natural law. That is the law. Love is the law. Love under will. Anyone who really understands that, yes, love is the law, and everything leads to love. Under will, under the harness and the reins of true will. Willpower is what gets shit done. Pure will is how it happens. And it's just self-evident. Life will have its way. And when it doesn't, when energy becomes static, right? Then what happens? What happens when energy builds into a static ball? We get lightning. Lightning is the release of static energy, and it has a voice that booms and will not be spoken over, and it will not be interrupted. You're here in Bali, you've heard the thunder. It will not be spoken over, and it will not be interrupted. It is self-evident, and the thunder says the status quo must go. This energy may not remain stagnant. And this was the son of God, in the Norse, Thor, the son of Odin, right? The son of the creator, the voice. And we see that. How what we vocalize, what we put into the world through our word is what makes change. And if we're not in integrity with that word, then we're just full of shit. We're just creating chaos and all the bullshit where everything's weak and chaotic and the world gets enslaved. And a few really intelligent people just program everybody, and everybody's walking around like basically wooden puppets. Somebody else is pulling their strings in their marketing, in their, what they've been led to believe, in their indoctrination through schools and all this, right? Until a few men say, no, we're all sovereign. Every one of us are sovereign beings, and this is the way. And we'll stand for it, and we'll be in integrity. And you can trust me, because I tell the fucking truth. For me, finally, thank God,
One could argue that you're just another guide that they're going to fall in love with.
What's that?
One could argue you're just another guide they're going to fall in love with.
And I'll say don't. I say, fall in love with me at your own peril. Because I'm a dangerous motherfucker. You know what I mean? Don't fall in love with me. Fall in love with where you find yourself. Maybe when you listen to me, you find yourself somewhere. Isn't that beautiful to find myself? And what if I find myself here, now? Now I've arrived at the terrain where I find myself. Where do I find myself? I find myself here. Where else? I find myself now. When else? If not here and now, when?
What was that moment for you when you found out that you were in your terrain? You were like there. You're like, fuck, I'm here now. I've arrived.
It was shortly after I smoked the toad, after I smoked the 5-MeO DMT. That moment, I had a true ego death. And that was when it really started to become clear. And in studying the occult and in studying Kabbalah, listening to Mark Passio helped me a lot to get here. I give him a lot of credit. You know, I go way back, and like early foundational stuff was kind of that Tony Robbins teaching me how to change my state. You know, and then as I learned Kabbalah and Tarot and what archetypes were, studied a lot of psychology, you know, and I hope to, in what I transmit now, to save people 10, 20, 30 years of studying all this shit. It all ends up at the same place. Be the best version of yourself in the moment. That's it. That's it. Have a relationship with actuality and self-actualize to make the highest self actual. That's what self-actualization is to make it actual, to make it here now. So, you know, Eckhart Tolle or whatever was onto it in this power of now, but missing a big piece. Who the fuck is fucking the now? Who is making love to this moment? And how fucking hard are you gonna fuck, you know? What are you gonna get? Are you gonna make it passionate and cuddle and all that? It's all juicy, right? But that's where it ends up. How are we gonna make love with this thing? Sometimes we wanna fuck, sometimes we wanna cuddle or whatever, but it's gotta be passionate, right? With the moment, with everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Woo! Take a breather.
It's juicy.
Who is fucking the moment?
Yeah. Who is it? Who's it gonna be?
Yeah.
That's the only decision we have. Our fate is sealed. What has happened is done. Now, who interacts with what is done? Now, that's where it gets juicy.
Yeah.
And that's where we have willpower. Or we can just be dumb, animated objects that just let our natural, this is what I feel like. This is my mood. My fucking mood is going to run the ship.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
But that's the thing, right? So I'm sure you've had many moments in your life where you've believed that voice.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I just feel like this. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just going to be depressed all day or whatever.
Yeah,
You know? How did you, so someone's in that right now. What would you say to that person? Like, they were you.
Change your state. It goes back. That's that foundational thing that Tony Robbins talked about. You find yourself depressed, stand the fuck up. You know? Become something greater. Right now. Right fucking now. Do it. If you're depressed out there, you're on your guy, you're listening to this, it sounds good. Fucking do something. Get up. Get fucking up. Go to the gym. Go face your courage and ask somebody out on a date. Like, do something. Feel life. Get back with it. You gotta just pick yourself up. And we know how to like pull those shoulders back and get that chest out and get that chin up. People, keep your chin up. That's what it means. Keep your fucking chin up, you know? Like, change your state. And then get to work. Practice, keep becoming, keep doing. But if you let yourself down, then you let yourself down. You know? Pick yourself up. Pull yourself together. That's the true magician. Pull yourself out of the hat. You know? Instead of a fucking rabbit.
I love that. Pull yourself out of the hat.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You just got to do it.
And that's pretty much like your whole message, right? Like pulling yourself out of the hat. How do you do that? Like based on your life experiences. I mean, incarcerated 18 times. I had no idea. Like that's crazy. And for those who like petty things or stuff like that.
What do you mean?
Like petty things, like
Mostly.
like stealing
fighting,
candy bars and shit.
not showing up for court, DUIs. Never. I dealt weed and mushrooms like my whole life and never got caught. So I was really good at that. But it was just getting caught peeing in a parking lot. But I was on probation. And then I could have probably gone to the judge and gotten 2 days, but then I blew off going to see the judge. And so then the cops have to find me somewhere, and then now I'm going to have to go for longer. Just always like, once I was in the system and I was just such a fuck you, it just one thing after another. It all started with my first arrest was just being defiant. It was... failure to leave the scene of a riot was my first charge. And there wasn't a riot. There was a couple gangs got in a fight, and my buddy climbed up in a tree to watch. It was like Bloods and Crips. And my buddy was in the tree, and I was his ride home. The cops came in to break up the fight. They called it a riot. And my buddy was climbing out of the tree, and the cops started pushing him one way. And I was like, hey, I'm his ride. And they're like, shut up, whatever. So I just kind of followed behind, and when they got to the car, he said something smart, and they smacked him up on the roof of the car, and his head hit the light on the top of the cop car, and some blood went across it was a white cop car, and I saw blood go across the thing. So I just came charging in and jacked this cop up, shoved the cop, and then this other cop who was actually pretty civil, and you could tell he was a good guy. He wasn't going to arrest me for assault on a police officer, which that would have been bad enough, But he's like, just get out of here. And I'm like, fuck you. I have the right to peaceful assembly. I'm going to assemble peacefully here, and all this, just being and so they gave me failure to leave the scene of a riot. And that was my very first charge. But that led to just this consistent, fuck you. I'm not going to come to court. I'm not going to pay my fines. I'm not going to... I just was a defiant motherfucker for a long time until finally, then my final one, that's why I think that was so devastating, is that I actually stole from my friend. I actually robbed my friend. That is completely out of character, It was the character I was at the time. But we look even at that word character. It's the charred actor, char, meaning burned down to its essence. And the actor, the charred actor. True character is who we are when everything's burned to the ground. Then we find our true character, and then can we be that actor, the charred actor, and exhibit true character, So that's been a lot of this journey too.
So you were burned to the ground in that moment when you were 43 years old. You just step outside, you see all the police there, they slack you to the pavement, and you go into the cell, and you will hear that voice. And then how long were you incarcerated for after that time?
So they let me stay out for a year because they let me go to rehab. Well, they first let me go to a detox center, and then they let me go to rehab. And then just scheduling or whatever, somehow it ended up a year. And I got really involved in charity work and started working at the homeless shelter. And in fact, then I finally got my sentence. And it was funny. I could have done 5 years. I had an attorney who got a deal that I could plea bargain to for a misdemeanor. But I was now in a place where I had to tell the truth. And so I was like, I can't do that. I have to stand up in front of this judge and say, guilty as charged. And in fact, I didn't just say guilty as charged. I said, guilty as charged, and I robbed the bar more times than I'm being charged with. I told the real truth. Yeah. Looking at 5 years in prison. It took courage beyond anything I can even, Wow. And he said, here's what I'm going to do. What did he give me? I'm going to give you a year and suspend all but 10 days. But if you do anything else, we're going to reinstate that and you'll be in prison for whatever. So I got I only had to go to jail for 10 days, and then they let me out 3 days early for good behavior. So I only got 7 for that. But I had also been on parole or probation this time was a felony. I'd been on probation for a DUI that I got 40 days for that. And they kicked me out 3 early on that too. So I did 47 days in a row on that last one, which really isn't, it's jack shit. And when we talk about like systemic racism in America, guaranteed we flip our skin color, I don't get that light of a sentence. You know, I recognize that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've always recognized that.
Yeah.
That there is, you know, and this will sound funny because I come across as someone who, I'm a libertarian. I'm truly just an anarchist, you know. But so I'm anti any authority outside of the source of life. I do not recognize anything as an authority over me or you or anybody else other than whatever created my life, which I can best know by exhibiting will, true will, you know. So that was kind of a long answer to your. It's all entertainment.
Well, what a great way! Like 47 days after you were sentenced to 5 years. So you thinking back to it now, do you think telling the truth helped you?
Oh, not only that. A year later, my attorney calls me up and is like, "Hey, did you do something? Did you go down to the court and do something?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I was supposed to be on parole for 5 years. So I was on parole, not probation, parole." Yeah. And because it's felony, felony burglary, and. I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, somehow you not only got kicked out of parole, you're out of the system. They reduced your felony to a misdemeanor. You're no longer a felon. You get to have your passport back. You can have guns. Like you." He's like, "Are you sure what you did?" And I said, "We need to find out." He says, No. It's probably a clerical error. We can't do that." I'm like, "That's not how I live anymore. I have to know." So we went, he goes, "Okay, but I'm going to go to the courthouse, and if it's a clerical error, you're going to be back in parole again." And I'm like, "I don't care. I was already in parole." You know what I mean? Like, let's find out.
Yeah.
So he digs everything out, and my parole officer apparently had been like sneaking around super ninja, like seeing, because he was convinced there's no way that this guy is being as good as he seems he's being or whatever. So he was trying to find out. He was like sneaking in my yard and watching me everywhere I went. And I had a full commitment. I wasn't breaking the law anymore. So I lived on top of this, like 2 miles up this super steep hill. And I was riding a bicycle because I didn't have a driver's license. I hadn't had a driver's license for years, for decades. And I was doing all this charity work, and I was just doing all this stuff that I was just doing because it seemed like the right thing to do. But he wrote this letter to the judge and said, "This guy has no business on this. This is a truly reformed human being. The stuff he's doing." I mean, he just wrote this glowing letter to the judge and asked that I be kicked out and all this stuff, and the judge agreed. And it was just like, yeah, that doesn't happen if I'm still a lying schemer, whatever. In fact, I probably get busted for being a lying schemer. I break my parole, and I'm back doing 5 years in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the power of telling the truth, even when it doesn't serve. You thought I don't know what you were thinking in the moment though. Were you thinking, "I'm going to tell the truth, and hopefully this will get me"?
Nope.
I'm just going to.
I let go of the terms and conditions. That's huge.
Yeah.
That thing, when you're trying to bend how things are, even a little bit, you wish it was different. You want it to be different. Instead of going, "No, it is what it is," and I can become more savvy. I can become more competent at navigating this journey. But it is what it is. And I'm going to be in integrity. My word means something. When we're in integrity with the word, it penetrates in such a way that it impregnates with the imprint of the soul, so that who we are becoming becomes manifest. Because it's in integrity. It rings true. The word rings true in the field. In the field of pure potentiality. It's everything. Otherwise, you're just impregnating with a false word. Is like trying to pay for something with fool's gold. Yeah. There's no value.
Yeah. So just committing to the truth.
Commit to the truth.
That's something that I didn't realize, because you don't realize it when you're in it. It's like you're a fish in water. You don't realize that you're a fish until you take it out of water, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I didn't realize little things. Like, for example, I was in a relationship here, and I'll be like, oh yeah, she'd be like, when are you coming? I'd be like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. And I'd show up after 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
And then she actually pulled me up on it. She was like, I can't trust you because you said that you're going to be here in 10 minutes, but you're 5 minutes late.
Yep.
I was like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like,
Right.
you know, just brushing it off. But that's actually what you're saying, being integrity with your word to the point where I'll be there in 10 minutes. I'll be there. I'm going to be there within 10
Do
minutes.
everything I can. And if I'm going to be a bit late and I recognize that, I tell you as soon as possible.
Yes.
But here's the thing deeper than that. That's the superficial. The one person you cannot fucking trick is you. Is the cosmos itself. You can try to convince yourself and da-da-da. But if you don't trust you, and only you know what your true commitment is. When you say, no, I really want to get fit, I can tell, like with you. You do it. You're in integrity. And you show up, whether you feel like it or not. It's self-evident. You're ripped, you know? And you know you can be trusted. And you have relevance in that field. You have relevance in the field of fitness. For sure. Anyone who knows you knows. I listen to you. You tell me about fitness, I'm going to listen because you're more fit than I am, right?
I don't know about the surfing though, man. Yeah. You're really fit at the surfing.
Yeah. So, but that's the big one is can you first develop rapport with yourself? Can you trust yourself? Does your word mean everything to yourself? It has to start there. And it's so easy to go, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep my word to my girlfriend because then I'll have better sex. You know, again, yeah. It's like, no.
Yeah.
You have no business working on integrity somewhere outside until you've worked and practiced until you can trust yourself. And then what happens is the relevance is self-evident. People all of a sudden are listening to you. All of a sudden you recognize that you have influence. You don't try to have influence.
Yeah.
You just have it.
Yes.
But it's always an inside job. Always. Everything is an inside job. Yeah.
Life is inside job, right? Like if there was a guy once I heard, he said, if you want to change what's in your hand, you got to change what's in your head.
100%. And change what's in your heart and change what's in your guts. It's all one thing, and change what's in your right hand and change what's in your left hand. You know, it's all of this. It's all, you know, it's this all encompassing, you know, the way we fuck, the way we eat, the way we tell stories, the way we love, the way we defend, the way we learn, the way we understand, the way we exhibit will, like all of it, the way we are beautiful, right? All of this. Can we get integrity with the vision of what would that look like if I was at the very best I could be of that? Of all of it, what's the most beautiful I can be? That's such a great question. You know, I heard Jordan Peterson talking about like create beauty. If you want to just start with something, it is so hard to make your bedroom truly beautiful. If you just get to work at that and can master that, you'll learn a lot about yourself, you know? But can we make ourselves truly beautiful in the way that we interact with each other? You know, someone in the video of us in the waterfall, this friend of mine, dear woman, said, I saw you grab that man's hand. And that men don't do that. You know what I mean? Men don't do that. Do you know what I mean? To come out and go.
Yeah, I was holding on as well.
Yeah. You know, that's beautiful, bro. Like that is such beautiful brotherhood for two men to hold hands and do something like that. And the result was pure invigoration. Pure, incredible.
Yeah.
Right? Can we be beautiful? You know, that to me, if I were to tell anyone to start somewhere, start there. I think the rest will fall into place. I think everything else will fall into place. Can you start by becoming beautiful? You know? I think that's a really great place to start.
Yeah, and really trusting yourself. Because in that moment, I had to trust you.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was the unknown for me.
Yeah.
And as humans, like we're scared of the unknown. I've never been under the waterfall. What if I get sucked under?
Yeah.
Fuck.
But you could return anytime, and now you could take somebody there.
Right.
Next time you were there, if you're there with your son in 20 years or something like that, you're going to do it with him.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. And that's literally what you were talking about earlier about seeking. Is you were my guide. You showed me the terrain, and now I can go back to the terrain and then be a guide for someone else.
And you were disturbed. You found it, and you were disturbed.
Yep.
And then the universe was opened unto you. And it's like, And then you laugh at it. It's almost funny.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, of course we can go under there.
Yeah.
You know, of course we can get under that waterfall. We can do all kinds of things in that waterfall. You know? But it's only our belief. You know, someone's asked me, did it hurt? And I'm like, that's a weird question. Because it kind of is uncomfortable. But when you think about it, did it really hurt?
No.
Or was it just so different than anything we'd experienced? It's like, is this pain? But we certainly didn't come out injured. So, you know, and I feel that way when I crash surfing all the time. I'm like, I'll almost be like, I got wiped out and I was held down for, all this water, 20-foot wave pounding me and holding me down. I was like, like it hurt. And I was like, it didn't hurt. It's uncomfortable. I don't know where the hell I am. It's something. There's a lot of pressure going on. There's a lot of intense feelings, but am I really hurt? And that, if we look at that in life, a lot of the things I think where we think we're hurt might just be an illusion. I mean, that's a really valuable thing to examine. Does it really hurt? Or is it just uncomfortable? You know, is it just so different that it seems uncomfortable? Because certainly we didn't get hurt.
Yeah, it's something I tell I literally made a video about this for my clients because people can't tell the difference between like pain and discomfort when it comes to working out.
Yeah.
It's like, it hurts. Like, does it really hurt or is it just uncomfortable?
Right.
You know? Like, it's the
it
same
doesn't
thing.
really hurt.
Right.
Might hurt 2 days later when you go to put your shoes on. You know? Yeah.
So let's switch gears. So how much weight was the heaviest?
So 113 kilos, which was 257 pounds in America. That's and now I'm walking around at about 87. When I feel like I'm pretty fit, 85. If I wanted to be ripped like you, I'd probably get down at 80, 82, somewhere in there. But I'm certainly athletic now. I couldn't run or anything.
What are you in pounds? What's that, like 185, 190?
I don't know anymore. I think it's like 185, 190, somewhere in there. But I was... after high school, I was, I told you guys up there, I had been both physically and sexually abused, but really physically abused for most of my younger, like 9 to 13. And I started just lifting weights and boxing and studying martial arts, Jeet Kune Do and later jiu-jitsu and all this to defend myself. I was sick of getting my ass kicked, And after high school, I got to where I don't know this in kilos. Now that I live here, I let go of that imperial system and I'm just doing metric. But back then I only knew imperial. So I was about 210 pounds. I was bench pressing 350 pounds and squatting 575 free squat, not in a cage. Yeah. And was leg sled. On the leg sled I could do, I think the whole thing held like it was almost a ton. It was like 1,600 pounds. Plus my buddy would sit on it and he was 200, and I could go all the way down and leg press it. Recently I just was testing and I did 820 kilos. No, 340 kilos on leg sled. So I'm getting back up there. So I was heavy, but that's because I was buff. Now, trying to figure out like where I am, I'm just kind of looking in the mirror, and then I'm more into functional right now. I just want to be able to surf, and I want to be able to run. I want to be able to dance. I want to be able to fuck.
Those are all good goals.
It's all working out. Yeah.
But how did you put on all that weight though?
So when I was really in what I would call like the Matrix, the deep American programming, where everything was about country club lifestyle, having the best car, having the best house, what do the people think of you? It was all image oriented. I lost myself, and I would work so hard on trying to get money or make things seem a certain way that I'd forget to eat, and then I'd be so hungry and I wasn't disciplined. I had no discipline whatsoever. And I'd eat Kentucky Fried Chicken and Wendy's and Taco Bell and just this American shit food. And on top of that, I didn't know much about nutrition. So I'd be like, well, today I'm going to eat healthy. So I'm going to go to the supermarket and buy a TV dinner or a can of soup, Campbell's soup or whatever. I was just eating all processed food. I barely made any real food. And I think a lot of the food, even the meat and stuff in America, is so filled with steroids. And I'd always be like, fuck that organic shit and all that, So I was eating pesticides and whatever. And I got out here and I don't eat any processed food. I don't buy a can of anything. I eat real meat, real vegetables, real fruit, drink a coconut. I do fasts now. In fact, I generally intermittently fast. I basically now, I get up, meditate, stretch. Well, first bulletproof coffee. I have a bulletproof coffee, then meditate, stretch, surf, come back. You then start returning emails, all that stuff, and then usually have my first meal around 12, and then I'll have another good one at about 4, and then stop. So basically, I'm only eating like in that little window most of the time. If I'm with my friends, we're up there at Moonduke, and he makes us some awesome food, and okay, I'm going to try that pancake. Okay, I'm going to eat it 8 o'clock. I'm going to eat it whatever. I'm not rigid. I'm not like religious about it, but I have a general. My life seems to go better like this. And then if I catch myself feeling toxic or feeling like I'm just too stiff or a little bloated or things just aren't going right, then I do little cleanses. So I might just do a coconut cleanse. Coconut cleanses are super easy. Or another one I'll do is just bone broth and water. So I'll just say like, all I'm going to do for the next 5 days is bone broth and water. But I'll have as much bone broth as I want. Yeah. If I'm hungry, I can chug bone broth and water. And I usually don't sleep that well because I'm peeing all night long during those. But 4 or 5 days later, I'm back super healthy. And fasting is a really important. Being this old and wanting my joints to work right and stuff like that, fasting is huge.
Yeah, been fasting now for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's one of my secrets that I tell people.
Yeah. It's also a secret of the mind.
Yes.
Because when you fast, the clarity comes real quickly, and we have access to a spirituality. If somebody's called toward a certain plant medicine that they never had, if somebody's like, what's 5-MeO-DMT? I want to smoke the toad. If you're really called to it and it shows up, do it. But if I were to suggest to anyone that if you want to hack in to a spiritual connection with Source, stop eating. Drink water. If you have something that's really pressing on your mind, you're like, I can't figure this out, and you want to go into what I would call real prayer, a real fervent desire to get an answer to a question you can't solve, stop eating. Just drink water until you get the answer. Don't stop till you get the answer. And I would put my reputation on it. You'll get it. It'll hit like a thunderbolt at some point. That's the answer to my problem.
Yeah. And it gives you like this primal instinct as well.
Oh yeah.
Like because before, like when we were like 100, 200, 300 years ago, whatever, like before we would go and kill something, we would go and fast, and then our hormones, like our adrenaline is spiked, and it was like we're going on the hunt, so it's like it keeps you on edge and like keeps you sharp.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how like the second or third day you're like imagining what you're going to eat when you break the fast, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and when you finally get to like the 5th day, you almost don't want to. You're like, I feel good, like I could keep going, I could go a couple more days. And then you almost don't want to eat, and you eat so much less than you thought you were going to.
I've actually never done a 5-day just water fast. Like I think I'm going to do that.
I've done it twice.
Yeah.
But I did it in a setting where I took myself out of society. So all night I prayed at a fire, and all day I sat at a waterfall up in Les. During the reported pandemic, there was no people around, and so I was able to go up there and have the waterfall to myself and sit at this fire all night for 5 days.
Wow, that's amazing.
And at night I would drink this old ancient Chinese tea, like 2,000-year-old tea, that was very ceremonial in nature. So there was some flavor to one of my, each night, you know, some of my water had the tea in it or whatever, but
Wow.
still the same.
Sounds like a great experience.
It's great.
Yeah.
I can definitely turn you on to the cabins. They're little 3-sided cabins up on this hill, and your night at the fire, you'll be completely no one around. You'll see all the stars, the ocean's out there. It's beautiful, beautiful setting for a fast and a real detachment from the world for a while. And again, as you do that, don't fall in love with, again, that's just the guide, right? As you find the terrain, remember your way back. So then you can come back to that terrain in any situation. You don't have to be out in, detached from society. You can do it right here, right now. Come back, because you'll remember.
But that's why people like meditation, because
Yeah.
it does that for them. Like today, for example, I sat for 25 minutes, you know, just nice. Just calming the mind.
Yeah.
You know?
And as we keep practicing, we can snap to it like right now. Like I did it a second ago. Right now, I'm in it again. Just
anchoring.
Yeah, here I am.
Yeah.
Back completely present.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk to us about surfing, because I know you go by the name of the Sage Surfer, and you started surfing at age 49. So what got you into surfing?
And I'll prelude this with, my idea was to call the podcast and everything a surfing fool, because the fool is the beginning of all great journeys. And I understand why the marketing company said, no, a Sage Surfer is going to attract more of the audience you're looking for. And I deferred to them because I don't know much about marketing. So I'm like, okay, I'll defer to that and do that. But so I started at like you said, 49. I would sit out there. So how this thing, the Sage Surfer, kind of came across, I had been trying and failing at surfing for about 3 months. So when I came out here, like I said, I was 113 kilos or 257 pounds. My stomach was this big. I was as big as a pregnant woman. And I would get on my surfboard, and literally I'm like having to turn my body all crooked just to get my hands to the water, because I've got this much space between me and the surfboard, this big fat stomach, you know? And my knee didn't bend. I hadn't been able to bend my knee for almost 4 or 5 years. I have no cartilage. Maybe I have cartilage now. They say it doesn't grow back, but I don't believe anything. I don't believe anything. But I did see an X-ray of my knee, and I'd had some pretty severe injuries as a kid, and there was no cartilage in that X-ray or whatever. So I was dealing with that, and I had failed and failed and failed, and I was sitting out there, and I don't know even where this prayer came from, but I was sitting on the outside of the waves, and I was looking at Mother Nature, looking at the ocean and the horizon, and really feeling her as my mother. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. If you let me ride a wave, I'm talking to Mother Earth, like as though it's real. It's like, I'll hold you in my heart so that you can experience yourself through me as I experience myself through you. And the next wave that came up, I caught it, I popped up, I rode it, and I was filled with this like exhilaration. Tears are pouring down my face, and I paddled back out, and I'm like, thank you, Mother, thank you, thank you. And ever since then, I do this thing where I intentionally feel as though nature itself is inside of me, experiencing itself through me as I'm surfing, that I'm giving a gift back to nature as it is experiencing itself through me, and I get a sensation that I'm actually experiencing myself through nature, that it's this reciprocal relationship. So whatever that was, it was trippy and it was profound, and I was like, whoa, and I had no idea where that came from. It certainly didn't come from me, like little me. It's like whatever you'd call it, divine inspiration or something. A download would be the new age term for it, right? Or whatever. Right. So as I kept doing that in my heart, there was just this thing where I got this guidance. I'd start thinking about shit, and I'd get all these profound experiences. I was like having a meditation sitting on my surfboard between waves, waiting. Because, you're out there, you're waiting. You're like, oh, is there a wave coming out there? I think it is. Maybe you paddle. But you do a lot of waiting as surfing. In surfing, you do a lot of waiting around. And I was meditating in this, and I had this like inspiration again. It said it. It said musings from the lineup. Where you're lined up out there is called the lineup. Where you're waiting for the waves is the lineup. You're trying to line up in a way that the wave's going to come, and sometimes it's referring to if there's 6 or 7 surfers, you're lined up like you have a priority. I just rode a wave. I'm to the back of the line. Somebody else gets to have priority. Now, not everybody follows that out there, and there's a lot of fights and shit over that, right? But that's how it should be, somewhere in that vein, right? And so it made no sense, and it was extremely embarrassing. And, I came home, and I grabbed my phone, and I went down to the beach, and musings from the lineup, episode 1, and hit live. Hey, I was out there, and I was thinking about this thing, and and I'm going to do this thing, musings from the lineup. So here's what I was thinking about in the ocean, And then, a little while later, I'd have a thing out there. Like, okay, episode 2. Hey, how does this work? Just an idiot, just doing it. But I trusted that came from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And as I did it, things happened. People would start reaching out to me. People would share their problems with me. I'd start to connect with people. I'd start to learn things. People who were, became mentors of mine, saw what I was doing and would offer advice or support me in some way. And it's just the whole thing created slowly where I just got led to, I had this mentor at the time, and she was like, I was a little worried when you started doing that. She's like, you're the first person I've ever seen doing this that doesn't make my nose twitch. Mm-hmm. And I knew what she meant by that, because she was super like, fuck New Age, She was very occultist, and she called herself a Neoplatonic theosophist. Mm-hmm. And she was the most brilliant woman that I ever knew. She died about 1.5 years ago, a year and some change, a year and a few months ago. And but she became real supportive and started sending me just like thousands of pages of cool shit, and and then just things started opening up. I did this really cool peyote ceremony. I was drawn to the toad. I went on a cool San Pedro hike and started meeting people in community and invited to men's circles, and just everything just kind of opened up. I trusted it and followed it, and then that led to now the Sage Surfer. And the Sage Surfer podcast is just crazy. I have people from all over the world. It's amazing. People send me a video that we're having a Sage Surfer listening party, and there's like 7 people in San Diego filming themselves listening, to the cool. Sage Surfer. I have listeners in Africa and in India and in, all over the world, Australia, and, it's a trip. And I meet people, and they're like, hey, you're the Sage Surfer, and da-da-da. And, oh, this one episode changed my life. And, I was going through this hard time, and it was like your words spoke to me. That was that thing we touched on earlier about like transmission and reception. You don't know where in space-time it is, but it is just one thing, the transmission and the reception. It happens specifically in one point from many different perspectives. I guess is the way I would put that. And so that's kind of how that all started, and what's going on with it. I haven't really, I wouldn't say I haven't monetized it. I've gotten a lot of work because of it, but I have never intentionally been like, I'm doing this to get money. I just do it because I was called to do it, and I know I'm supposed to do it. And also, I often get this feeling like I don't want to do it. And there's something so valuable when you've made a commitment, you say you're going to do something, and then you go, I don't want to do it, and you do it anyway. Somehow, again, that's like second to courage, right? The universe rewards courage above anything. And then I think the second thing that it rewards, whatever you want to call this, manifestation, what it rewards is when you don't feel like doing something, but you know that you said you would do it, and you do it when you don't feel like it. That's the second best reward we can get in this world. So this has provided me an opportunity to practice that as well. And slowly my ability to speak publicly and to articulate the things that I'm perceiving, I get better at it. If it helps somebody, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not doing it expecting anything. I don't have any terms and conditions. It's not like it has to help somebody. You know, it reminds me of the sun. The sun shows up every day and gives of itself 360 degrees. This is true liberty. This is true liberty, to give itself 360 degrees. It doesn't give a fuck what you think about it, what your beliefs are, whether you receive it, whether you're grateful, whatever, right? It just shows up every day and gives of itself and is life-giving regardless. It's completely sovereign. And that's this way, right? If the sun's doing it and we would die without it, it is the life-giving source of our ability to be on this earth, then maybe I might emulate that, you know? And so that's the exact way I go about the podcast. It's just me shining 360 degrees. Yeah. And I don't give a fuck whether you like it or hate it or say thank you or, you know what I mean? That's not why I'm doing it. I'm just doing it because that's who I am. It's my nature.
Fuck. What you just said there speaks directly to me, because everything you said there was what I have experienced on this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, I don't really want to do this anymore, or, you know, like you have those thoughts, and that's really refreshing for people to hear, because there's a lot of people that follow me and they think that I'm some Superman or some shit. It's like, no, we have these thoughts, even though we know it's the right thing to do. We're still going to have these thoughts of doubt. Like, stuff's going to creep in, and we just got to be like, nope, I'm showing up today. I'm showing up.
Assassin. Yeah.
Yes, like just a sever, right? I'm showing up. I already made a decision. I'm going to be in alignment with my word, right? In integrity with my word.
That's it.
Yeah, because you already made an agreement. Like, that's it. When I met you, you said that you've been doing a stage show for a year, and I was like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm like halfway through. Like, this is like episode, I think 26. I think. I'm like, fuck, I've got another 6 months of this shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's like, just enjoying the process, and just, I've already committed to a year, so that's my commitment. I have to honor my word, otherwise I lose trust in myself. Yeah. And then that affects everything.
And you were called to it for a reason that you don't quite know. That's how it generally is that, you know, we know that what becomes manifest, this is the highest resolution, right? So like, it's in high def. You're in the highest def I could possibly experience, right? But the initial calling was in low definition. It was just an image I could almost barely make out. And we watched that this is happening in technology, that we went from AM radios and black and white TVs and trying to tune in to now these high def screens and this type of thing. That this is what's happening, is that what we're doing is taking these low resolution images and saying, no, I'm going to turn it into a high definition experience. And so whatever that calling is, when you trust it, you know, you have no idea what the end result is going to be. But my experience is I look back afterward and go, oh my God, this opportunity that came out of left field that I never would have expected, that ended up being the greatest thing that ever happened to me, would never have occurred unless I kept my word on this other thing that seemed stupid and scary, and that I just knew for some reason I was supposed to at least attempt it, you know, and just went for it and had courage. That was that thing. And that's really those two things, courage and doing shit when you don't feel like it. Honoring your word, especially when you don't feel like it. Those two things somehow turn into the best surprise gift, the biggest surprise ending to the story, that you're like, holy shit, this is so awesome. And it could never have happened unless I did those two things. Exhibited courage and did shit when I didn't feel like it.
Yeah, that's so true, man. Like, I just think back to like all the times I didn't want to go to the gym. Yeah. You know, and I still went, you know, like, and the compound interest that builds up. Like, you said you were 210 pounds, you were squatting
257.
No, when you were squatting 570.
Oh yeah.
You were 210, right?
Oh yeah. And ripped.
Yeah.
And like, ripped. Yeah.
You can't get that way unless you're going to the gym when you don't feel like it. Yeah. And I'm sure there was many days where you didn't feel like going to the gym.
Yeah. You know, I was like 165 pounds when I was 18 and 210 when I was 24. Wow. Pure, packed on, earned, no steroid, all supersets, all I remember finding this book, Power Factor, which was overload. Where you'd do overload. You'd get a buddy and you'd put more weight than you could push back up and just resist it. Hold it as long as you could, way more than you could handle. And then once it broke through, your buddy, or you'd sometimes have two buddies, there to catch it and put it back up. And this, doing way more than you can do. That's how I really packed on all that real big, hard muscle was. And, that's a perfect metaphor too. Everything's metaphor, right? You want to get really big at this, do shit way more than what you can do. Go for stuff that's way bigger than you can do, and go for it and fail and go again and fail. That's all of our gains in our bodies, in lifting and all that, all come from failure. Mm-hmm. The good rep is the one that you fail. That's the one. All those other reps are just to get there, to get to failure. The first rep you do on any exercise, that's not doing anything for you. If you just stopped after that, you wouldn't do shit. It's the one that you fail on is the one that gives you the gain, Right.
It's true that. Well, I'm just going to do one rep now.
Yeah, good luck.
There's actually a book, it's called Mini Habits, and the guy's whole ethos is just commit to one push-up. And then after you do one push-up, you want to do another one, and like building many habits like that. Mm-hmm. Which is an interesting concept, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
But surfing. So 49 years old, you started surfing, and how has that journey been till now? Like, what has been the biggest high and the lowest low in that journey?
So yeah, I've wanted to quit so many times. I've thought that I couldn't do it so many times. I've had scary moment. I had a moment. I was out in probably, quadruple overhead Nusa Dua, and was held down and had a moment of, am I going to make it back to my kids? Did I fuck up? Did I push myself one limit too far? And that low moment was followed by one of the best moments of my life, where I came up and realized I had the will to live. And I took an ass beating for about 45 minutes, a serious ass beating, and didn't quit and didn't give up. I could have turned and just let the water take me back in. But on one level also, my buddy, who's my mentor, I wanted to prove to him that I could make it in there and crash and get back out. So I was fighting to get back out, even after I thought I was about to die. And even though the next time I dropped in, I crashed on that one too, and then I let it take me in and I went in. We were sitting there, about four of us that were out there, sitting there having a smoothie afterward at the beach. And these guys were like, I saw you drop into that, Sean. I saw you. That was so badass. And there was this feeling of accomplishment, like, I'm finally in this surfing community, which on one level that can sound like I'm looking for outside validation, but it's something that I knew I wanted. I wanted to be a surfer. Since I was a little kid. I was 9 years old living in Utah with surfing pictures all over my ceiling and my walls. And I was what you would call a poser. I wore surf clothes to school. I lived in Utah, as a skier, and later a snowboarder or whatever, rode a skateboard, but dressed like a surfer, would always watch surfing videos, just like dreamed of being a surfer. And here I was that day after that beatdown. And these guys were like, that was so rad. And I could feel like I'm a surfer. Like I am really a surfer. So that was probably a moment of both a low and a super high at the same time. Last year, like August 3rd and 4th, was the biggest swell in 3 years. And the first day I went for it and I didn't make one. And the second day I got 3. And I rode 3 waves that were as big as, some of these palm trees out here, just massive. And it was so exhilarating and so rewarding. And, I think we talked about this on the hike in a different subject matter, but it's like, what's the real juice behind that reward? And it's the payoff for all the hard work. It's like all that hard work I put in, all those days of showing up when I didn't want to, all those ass kickings, all of those beat downs and hold downs and self-doubt and demons, and I did it. And there's almost that, maybe is one of the juiciest experiences we can have in life at all. Is I fucking beat all the odds. I did it. I actually did it. I actualized, I self-actualized that image, I have, not from that section, but one day I got lucky and I was surfing like a double overhead wave that barreled right kind of over my shoulder like this, and somebody on the beach got a picture of it. And somebody else found that picture months later and sent it to me. And I actually have a picture now of myself on a big wave, that I'm like, this matches what was on my walls when I was 9. I have a picture and it's me. And that was on my walls since I was 9, dreaming that was me on that picture. And now I have one. And there's something that's so rewarding. It's like, it's magic. It really happened. It actualized. And to me, that drives me to actualize being a better father, to actualize being a better lover, to being a better businessman, to being a better brother, to being a better part of this community, to be a leader in the freedom community and in the natural law movement, that a lot of us are wakening up to that this is essential, that we bring this into actuality, a world where we honor natural law and don't honor authorities, that somebody elected, fuck mob rule,
Wow, the self-actualizing. So that's so powerful because I can relate to that. Like everyone can relate to that. Mm-hmm. Like you've been through so much shit and then all of a sudden you triumph and you experience it. Because for me, I don't surf, but I can relate to that feeling, Mm-hmm. Like we've all had that feeling.
Yeah.
Like if you're on your mission and you're trying to conquer the world in your own way, like you've had those moments.
Well, you can stand in front of a camera with your shirt off and it's self-evident. You're ripped, and that has to feel good. You look fucking awesome. and anyone who's ever gone after that knows. You earned it. You earned every bit of that. And when it's actualized and you're like, it's that reward. But that's just one tiny,
right.
But with your business, look at your studio. Look at that. Like, you've actualized this. Look at this villa you live in. It's dope as shit. And you're in Bali. This is beautiful. Like, it's actualized. You did it.
Right.
And no one can take it away from you.
That's the thing, though. You can take that stuff for granted. Like, you live in a 6-bedroom mansion on the beach.
Yeah.
Like, that's just your normal life now.
Yeah. It's like, wow. Yeah. And sure, the villa will go away someday. We'll always move to new places. Everything changes, right? But that you did it can never be taken away. You will always, I did that. And the more you've done it and the more you know it, where it doesn't take belief, it's actual, it's self-evident that you've done it, the next one gets easier and the next one gets easier. And then it's, I'm going to set the bar higher. I'm going to set the bar higher. I'm going to become even a greater version of myself. And they can take everything away to you're back broke again. I mean, 4 years ago, I lost $3 million in a matter of 7 months. Whoa. And was broke as fuck. And 2 years later, I was living in a 6-bedroom mansion on the beach again. Because I had done it once before. I had done it twice before, and this is how it goes. I could have something crazy happen to my body and be in a coma for 10 years and come out and not be able to surf. And I know I'd be able to surf again. I know I'd go through exactly what I went through before. And this time I'd get there a lot faster. Because I'd remember what to do. I'd still have to do it again. Right? To build back the muscles and the memory and all that. But I could redo it again anytime because I know what it takes. You can't get there unless you keep practicing and absolutely. Failing.
Yeah.
And going again.
Being willing to fail is so important.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that almost becomes, I think the mindset of people who really start to succeed is this concept of fail faster. Let me fail as fast as I can to get that fuck up out of the way. So that I can move on to what is going to work. That's, again, the same thing as the search for truth. I want to know. I truly want to know. I don't want to deceive myself and try and pretend that everything's working and build an image, a facsimile of success. I actually want to fail as fast as possible and figure out what doesn't work so I can cut that shit out and get with it. Get with the real thing, you know?
Fail faster, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually something I've realized myself is like failing faster is really important. Like,
Yeah.
because failing slow, you're just wasting time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why like lifting heavier weights, right? Why go to 10 reps? I'd like to start out with where I'm failing at 4 or 5 reps. You know what I mean? For some reason, just doing it at 2, it's just not rewarding enough for me to start out that way. I want some for some reason. I don't know if that's just psychological, if I could just start out with the heaviest, but for some reason I want some. But I used to be like starting out at 10, and now I'm really starting out my weights on a thing about where I'm going to fail at 5. You know, really just get there faster and then really give that effort on the one that I can't do. Sometimes I actually do it and then, of course, go again until you can't do it, you know? But it's the same concept, right?
Yeah.
No.
That business story, it's crazy because we've been going for 2 hours. But I just want to touch on it real quick. So what was sustaining you for like your whole life? What's been your background like in career wise? Didn't even ask that question.
Career, right?
Yeah.
Well, so at a young age, I knew I could sell. I think my very first job, I was like 9 years old, and somebody told me, hey, you can, you know, at this age you can do this particular job. We'd go to, in Salt Lake City, basketball games and football games, or in these stadiums, and I'd walk up and down the aisles selling Coke, Sprite, hot dogs, you know, popcorn.
Oh, you're that guy.
Yeah, I was that guy. Yeah, walking up, popcorn, you know, snow cones, whatever I was selling, you know. And I'd really try to juice it up and put my character and charisma into it. And I learned that if I was really enthusiastic and went for it, I could make a lot of money. You know, you just burn through it. The faster you can turn around. I mean, I think it was like I was making a dime on every Coke and Sprite I sold. And then I was like, oh, but you can make a quarter on popcorn. And then I found out, oh, you can make $1 on hot dogs or 50 cents or whatever it was. But the hot dog thing that you carry around weighs 3 times as much as the popcorn or the Coke and Sprite thing, you know? So it's like, oh, okay, I'm going up and down the stairs. Do I want to take the heaviest thing that has the... So there was this blend of which one's faster and which one sells more, you know? And I think I found that even though you had a higher margin on hot dogs, I made the most with Cokes and Sprites. And so I was always selling Cokes and Sprites. Then I went from there to a Fuller brush salesman, selling mops and brooms door to door, knocking on doors after school. You know, so I got into that early, and then I had a little carpet cleaning company that I started when I was like 14, and then I found out about weed. You know, and that's really where my business acumen was built, was dealing weed. It was illegal in America, so margins were huge. I had the ability to meet people, and so I just kept finding my way into circles where I kept meeting higher and higher level pot dealers, you know? So I was able to buy more and more and get it at a higher discount and go from, you know, buying quarter pounds to pounds to 10 pounds to, you know, whatever. Then I started learning that I could grow it. I was like, oh. So then I was renting houses and growing weed in the houses. And I was like, oh, this is even better, you know, than if I grow the weed, I can make a way higher profit margin. You know, so this is kind of how my mind always worked. Then I learned that I could grow mushrooms. You know, there had been this little ad in this thing called High Times magazine that was like, hey, get this spore. To buy the spore of a mushroom is not illegal in America, but you can take that spore and turn it into real mushrooms, and now it's illegal. So I was a weed and mushroom grower and dealer for a long time. Then I decided I wanted to, around that time, I guess, no, right before, well, in between, in the middle, I had some calling. I was going to school at the University of Utah, and I was in literature, and I fell in love with Jack London and his books. And there was a book in particular called John Barleycorn, and I just all of a sudden decided I was going to head up to Alaska and become a fisherman. I thought maybe salmon, but it ended up a crab fisherman. I did that for a few years. That kind of turned me into a hard ass. I feel like I left a boy and came back a man. And then, so I still kept dealing, but now I dealt a lot differently. Then I became a partner on a bar. That turned into something. So we were a live rock and roll club. And I started meeting up and coming artists For instance, the first time I met Kid Rock, he was playing my bar. I paid him $100. And as he started getting bigger, I was like, oh, I want to still promote him. So I became a concert promoter. Oh. Yeah, that led to a real stretch of kind of that sex, drugs, rock and roll lifestyle. Some of the biggest shows I did was like Motley Crue and the Scorpions. I did a show with Busta Rhymes, Naughty by Nature, Maya, and 112 in a baseball stadium. Made like $60,000 or something. And, I was still in my 20s. And wow. So that's kind of how I cut my teeth, was in this real world. And it's all very anarchy world. So there's not really taxes going on in that world, you know. I guess that's a little risky to say, but fuck it. I think we're past the statute of limitations, and how are you going to prove it? I was just making it up. Told you I was a liar. No, I tell the truth. So, or do I, IRS man? Fuck you. So yeah, there was that, and then got involved in a bunch of things, and then I lost my way for a while. And when I became a drug addict, I just went back. I lost all my businesses, didn't follow through with things, really became pretty much a loser. And then I was like, well, I can go back to bartending, and I made enough bartending. And I, the whole time I bartended, I stole, whether it was one way or another. Giving my friends free drinks, but then at the end of the night, they give me a $20 tip. And I put it in my tip jar, and none goes into the till. It's stealing. There's all these different levels of stealing and dishonesty, And so I fell into there for 10, 15 years probably. And then after my last incarceration, my mother-in-law had been my very first rehab counselor. So I got put into rehab multiple times, but I was in rehab when I was, I think, 19, either 17 or 19. And Linda was my first rehab counselor. And so she had her hand in sort of this rehab world. And me and my wife at the time and her started having this vision for this addiction recovery conglomerate, intensive outpatient program, sober living homes, a laboratory. So it was like accountability through drug testing, and then the laboratory, we found that we could make money doing different things and analyzing different things. We had really high complex analyzers and things like that. Anyway, that's where I started making real money. And it's a long story, but it was this perfect storm came where I lost the $3 million. And the real basis of it was my own stupidity and ignorance. But that happened in the form of, we had some software that became corrupt, and I thought that the insurance companies were fucking with me. So I put all my energy chasing the wrong cause to fix the effect that I was getting, which was that money wasn't coming in. And by the time I figured it out, I had destroyed the whole company. So it was all me being ignorant and stupid. Right. But if it weren't for that, I'd still be in that lifestyle and would never have made it to Bali and never have actualized my dream of becoming a surfer and all of that. So once again, life unfolds exactly as it will. And at that point, I was telling the truth. And even though a lot of people accused me of being a con artist and a scammer when I lost all that money, then I understood there was plenty of evidence from my past to support that narrative. That's for sure. But at this time, I wasn't. And it was like I had to come to this place where I'm like, I don't care what anyone thinks. I know. And somehow life supported me in such a way that I ended up out here and quickly was able to, with my wife at the time, make a bunch of money and transform our lives and our kids' lives to super successful, high income, And now I'm on to other things and really excited about everything else on the horizon.
And you're making your own clothes now.
Yeah, I'm making the Sage Surfer clothing line, all linen clothing, timeless. I haven't gotten I still need this button that's going to be the logo. So I'm working on that. This is one of the first shirts I made, so this isn't the finished product. I found the proper linen that I like now, but basically I'm only making 4 products: linen pants, linen shorts, long sleeve linen shirts, and short sleeve linen shirts, and that's it. And the colors will all match, so you can buy like wardrobe in a box. If you buy 5 shorts and 5 shirts, you're gonna have 80 outfits, and it doesn't matter. You can grab them in the dark And the pants will match any shirt. The shirt will match any pants, any shorts. So very simple, you know, for surfers. And the message is, hey, dress like a little kid when you go to the beach and go surfing. But then when you go out with your lady, step up, you know, dress like a man. You know, because there is this thing, it's a reflection in our society where we see this, you know, people scrolling all day on Instagram instead of making something of their life or whatever. There's this fucking 100%. Peter Pan, I refuse to grow up thing going on. It's bullshit. And we need to, as men, fucking finally grow up. And I know my generation is as guilty as any. We were the first in the video games, you know, Space Invaders and whatever, and it's just gotten worse. And all of a sudden we're seeing there's this place. Men need to be men. We can have this spirit of youth. We can be childlike in our curiosity and in our play, for sure. And play, by all means, play. But also, you know, keep our responsibilities, keep our word, you know, step up in life, lead by example, you know, and, you know, teach the youth, you know, and teach accountability. I mean, really, isn't that what we really end up needing to teach is accountability, to point with thumbs, not fingers, to say it's my fucking fault. If there's something wrong, it's my fault. It's not somebody else's fault. It ain't the government. It ain't the Democrats or the Republicans or the pharmaceutical companies or big tech or corp or Big Brother or any of this bullshit, QAnon or whatever the fuck. It's none of it. It's me. It's me. I'm irrelevant. So I better become relevant. You know? That's the answer. So I better step the fuck up. That's the answer. And each one of us has, when we come to that sovereign realization, it's up to me. It's up to me. And if I'm lucky, I might have influence over one person. And that's worth it. Then it's worth it. You know?
That's my philosophy as well.
Yeah.
If just one person gets value out of this, it was worth it.
That's it.
You know? And on that note, so to wrap it up, I always end with one question that I ask every single guest. And it's super interesting because everyone has a different answer. So what is the meaning of life in your own words?
The meaning of life from my perspective.
Right.
The meaning of life is to self-actualize, to bring the vision of who I can become from low resolution into absolute resolution. Highest definition resolution, which is actual, which is made manifest, that it appears, that's the meaning of life, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Self-actualize.
Yeah, and then the result is love. The result is beauty. The result is life, you know? But rather than having the love be the goal is to self-actualize. The purpose, the meaning of life is to self-actualize. And when we do, we experience what we would call infinite love, when we realize that the self loves itself so much that it gives itself this thing called life. And it compounds like a mirror, that's infinity when a mirror is against a mirror. And we realize all of this, all is one. All is one. It is all self, seeking to realize itself, seeking to fuck itself, seeking to experience itself. And as above, so below. So as we do it here, it manifests out, and it's a reflection. Mind nested in mind. The result is the love. But it's not the purpose. It's not the meaning. From my perspective.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm sure that will land. I mean, that's something that I have to listen to again, just to let it land. You know.
Yeah.
It's deep wisdom in that, in your words there. Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Well, thank you for sharing everything that you've shared. You know, it's been amazing, like having you on, and you know, just getting to feel the energy that you bring, and just like soak it up and realize, wow, yeah, like I can do more.
Yeah.
Like your story, like from where you were to where you are now, that's such a massive change. And I can only imagine what the person you were like was like, you know, because you've made a massive change, like complete transformation.
I'm so excited to see who we are becoming, both of us, you know, and what I have, you know, I have an intuition or a premonition that one day we'll even, both of us will look back on this moment, have a good laugh at it almost, because it will be so small from where we will stand at a different place.
Yeah.
Because we're with it. And that will be an amazing moment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. The memories.
Yeah. Where you look back and go, remember when we were just doing this, you know? Because I see that throughout my whole life, you know?
Yeah.
It's so cool. And so for anyone out there listening, if not now, when? Right? If you're ever going to get started, now. Right now. If not now, when?
Yeah.
There is nothing other than now. This is it.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago, I was like, am I going to do this podcast? And now we're 6 months later. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I've done like 26
Exactly.
episodes. Like, goddamn.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I'm just following,
awesome.
just following the sage surfer's footsteps.
following the footsteps of the greatest version of yourself, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you?
Well, so, you know, Instagram is the Sage Surfer. You know, I post all my personal shit in my stories. Generally, my posts, sometimes I put some personal stuff. For the most part, it's promoting the podcast and that type of thing. You know, my podcasts are, you know, weekly reflections of what's going on, musing from the lineup. So that's on Spotify, Apple iTunes or whatever. I think it might be YouTube. I'm not sure. The podcast company's doing it, but that's really the easiest way in. You know, I'm sure you can follow me on Facebook or whatever. It's Sean P Barnett. But again, it's interesting. I basically just put personal stuff in my stories now. You know, I don't engage a lot in the main platform of Instagram and Facebook. I found that as a real time suck. But I'll tell you this. So I quit scrolling because I realized I was wasting so much time. So one of the things that I think is very valuable is if we always contribute more than we consume, produce more than we consume, that's a formula for success. So what I do is I produce and enter it into the marketplace. And then I interact and respond with anyone who interacts and responds with me. You know, so you want to start a relationship with me, you just interact, and I'm happy to do that, and I do that. But I don't go consuming. I do a little bit here and there. I'll put people at first, and like now that I hit your stories, you move higher up in my stories, right? So now I'm seeing your stories, you know, more often. It's like whoever, and again, this is relevance, right? The people that are relevant are the people that we're interacting with. And so I'll make my way a little bit through the stories, but not too far. I don't like to spend more than 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 2-3 times a day total. I don't want to spend my time in the screen, you know?
Yeah.
But that is how you interact with me or how you get to know me. Just interact. Throw a comment, I'll reply. Send me a message, I'll reply. Tell me you want to talk to me, I'll call you. You know, I'm very accessible, you know,
Awesome.
So yeah.
I'm hoping that someone who really feels like, fuck, Brian's like, I mean, sorry, not Brian, Sean. Why did I say Brian?
That's right. Probably Brian, the other surfer, the
yeah,
unstoppable
that's right,
surfer,
that's right.
Brian Swan. Hey, Brian, if you're out there, what's up, bro? I love you. I was going to see you tonight, but Gavin canceled. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, so someone might be in your situation that you were in before, and they'd be like, wow, this is the light. They can see the light because you've gone down that path already. So, yeah, just hit Sean up. And Sean, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Love you.